welcome to another lawnfawn video. Today we are so excited to be introducing our Corner Rainbow Stencils. These stencils are some of my favorite ever because they help you create these amazing rainbows. It comes in a pack of 2, which helps you separate all of the different arcs of your rainbow and easily ink them up. There's also these really great etching lines in the stencils that help you line up everything so that it's super easy to create amazing rainbows. There's also a super cute sun in this stencil set too. And here is a look at what it looks like when you layer the 2 together, and you can see how this amazing rainbow is going to fill in. So let's start creating some rainbows. So we're going to be working with these really pretty kind of pastel-y colors for our rainbow, and we're going to be working with a portrait card, but you can also do these on landscape as well. And the kind of traditional way to use this stencil is to have a rainbow in each corner. I like to do the upper left and the bottom right, but you can also use these rainbows by themselves on your cards. You can incorporate them into scenes, and we're going to be showing you a lot of cool and different ways to use these in this video. We're also going to be showing you some different ways to ink this up with different tools. And so this first time, I'm going to be using my blender brushes, which I love to use, and they're kind of big, so I need to make sure that I mask off the other parts of the rainbow that I'm not currently inking. And I like to do that with Post-its. It's nice and quick and easy, and I reuse the Post-its over and over again. And so here I'm taking this pretty pink, and I'm just inking up that rainbow arc there, and you can see it's super easy and super cute. And then I'm just going to lift up my Post-its, and I like to take this is just a nice dry cloth, and I just wipe off any of the extra ink there just to make sure I don't get any pink ink into my yellow arc of the rainbow I'm going to work on next. So I'm going to take those same exact Post-its and then another Post-it, and we're just going to mask off the other arcs, and we're going to work on the center one now, adding this really pretty bright yellow. Super quick and easy and so adorable, and I just love seeing the whole thing start to form. Then I'll take those Post-its and mask off the middle arc, and we're going to work on the last arc, which is going to be this really pretty purple. And so we're going to ink that up, and then we're going to come to my favorite part of stenciling, which is always the big reveal. And now you'll see that we have this really cool pattern that honestly would be cool just like that, just with one stencil. But I wanted to fill in the other arcs, and now I'm going to do that with the second stencil. You'll see that this stencil has this really cool offset built into it so that when you do each of the arcs of your rainbow, there'll never be a little white gap between the arcs. They'll actually blend over each other in such a beautiful way. So now that we've done our orange color, we can work on the last arc of the rainbow. We're going to use this really pretty turquoisey color merman, which is one of my favorites. We're going to ink that up, and we're going to lift up the stencil, and you're going to see exactly what I was talking about there, about how the arcs perfectly overlap each other. There's never a little white gap. It's so easy to line up the stencil that you never even have to think about it, and I love that so much. So now we're going to start working on the upper left rainbow, which is actually a smaller rainbow. So when you're incorporating these into your scenes, like we'll do later on in the video, you have 2 different sizes of rainbows as options. And so we're going to start inking up all of these little arcs here, just like we did before, starting with our pink and then yellow and then purple. And then we can lift up that stencil, and we're going to move on to the next one. Now you'll see here, I realized that somehow I got like a dab of ink. I think I must have had something on my finger, but I'll show you a way that we're going to cover up that later, because I did all this beautiful work with these rainbows that I love, and I want to still be able to use them, and no one's ever going to know that that little mark was on there. So now we've filled in the yellow and the turquoise, and just like our larger rainbow, these have that offset built in so that they're going to have that perfect blend between each one. Now here I sprayed a little bit of water on my surface, and I'm actually going to be using my little paintbrush to kind of pick up some of that ink and soften it. You'll see that there's still a little bit of a mark there, but I have another solution for that in just a bit here. So I'm going to take the largest of the outside in stitch rectangles, and we're going to die cut this rainbow piece. And then I went through my stash and I found the biggest word die that I have. So this is our giant sending big hugs, and it's the perfect size to layer over these amazing rainbows and cover up my little oops too. So we're going to add some tape runner to this beautiful sentiment, layer that right on top, and I'm just taking care to make sure that one of those letters covers up my little mistake there. And now I was able to use these amazing rainbows and have a really cool giant sentiment over top. It would have been also cute to add like a little heart there or some sequins or something. So I always find a mistake is a good opportunity for embellishment. So here I have a standard size card base. It's 5.5 by 4.25, and I'm going to add a piece of black licorice cardstock on top. And then we're going to layer this panel over that. And this is a really simple card that lets the stenciling kind of be the star of the show, which I think is amazing. And it was super quick and easy to make. I would love to do a ton of these with other giant sentiments, so I could have happy birthday, thank you, etc. I just think it's so pretty, and you can even do different shades of colors for the rainbows too. So this video is getting posted on St. Patrick's Day, so we had to create a St. Patrick's Day inspired card, and we are recreating a stunning card by Audrey. And we're going to start off with the stitched ripple backdrop. This cuts at a standard size, 5.5 by 4.25, but we wanted it to be 5.25 by 4. So I'm just trimming off 1/8 of an inch off either of the sides just to make sure that that ripple backdrop still kind of stays even in the center. Then we're going to do some stenciling, and we are going to be using the smallest of the rainbows, and we're going to use it not in the corner. So you'll be able to see other cool ways to use this stencil. And then this time, we're going to be using those little finger brushes that I talked about that make it really quick and easy to stencil. I'm going to use some Post-its to just cover up the edge of that stencil to make sure that I don't add any ink where I don't want it to go, just like I did earlier in the other card. I learned my lesson this time, so I'm going to put some Post-its there. But this time, I'm going to be using these little finger brushes, which means that I'm not going to need to mask off the other arcs of the rainbow because they're these nice little tiny brushes. And you could also use those little foam finger daubers too, and that would work great as well. And I really like this because I don't have to mask off the little arcs of the rainbow. It actually makes it super quick and easy to do. So I'm going to fill in this nice bright red. We're going to be doing some fun primary colors for this rainbow. And then I'm going to take a dry cloth. I always have one just right next to me in my drawer. And I'm just going to wipe off some of that red ink just to make sure I don't get red into my yellow by mistake. And then I'll use my little yellow finger brush and I'm going to fill that in. I'll take my cloth, wipe off the extra ink really quick, and then add the blue. And I love these little finger brushes for the stencil, or really any stencil that has kind of smaller lines or areas, because it makes it so quick and easy. And there's just something fun about using those little brushes. I just love them. So now we're taking our second stencil and we're lining it up. It has that awesome offset built in, which means that our arcs of our rainbow are going to kind of blend into each other and you won't have any white gaps between them. It makes it really, really easy to line up. And then we're going to fill in our orange and our green. And then here we're going to have our big reveal, and look how beautiful this rainbow is. Oh, I love it so much. One of my other favorite things that I love to do with these rainbows is spray water on them. There's something about it that kind of softens the rainbow up and just looks so pretty. So I'm going to spray some water and pick up the excess water with my paper towel. And then now we're going to add some gold flecks to this because this is going to go along with our St. Patrick's Day theme. So I added a little bit of water into my paint there, and then I'm going to pick up some of the paint with my paintbrush, and I'm just going to tap that paintbrush and create these amazing little gold flecks everywhere that is going to give it this really special kind of pot of gold feel at the end of the rainbow for this St. Patrick's Day inspired card. And now you can see just how pretty that is. And once again, the splatters of water and the splatters of paint over the rainbow just make it feel amazing. So here are our lucky clover dies, and I went ahead and die cut those out of some cilantro cardstock. And we're going to do some inking on these. So we're going to add some clover ink over top of these clovers. It just seemed perfect. And I'm using one of those little finger brushes again. They're really fun and small, and that way I'm able to add just a little bit of ink towards the center of these clovers. And what I like about doing this is it makes it look like I ink blended the entire clover, but all I did is add a little bit of shading to the center. Then I'm going to take a darker color ink here and just smear it on my craft mat, add a little bit of water, and we're going to be picking this up to add some splatters onto these clovers and give them some nice dimension. I started off with a smaller paintbrush, but I wanted some bigger splatters, and to do that, I added a little more ink and water, and I got a bigger paintbrush, and that's going to give me some nice big splatters, and that's how Audrey did her clovers, and I just thought they looked so cool. So here I have my little splatters, and now you'll see I've added some more water. I've got my bigger paintbrush, and that's going to give me some bigger splatters that are going to give them even more texture. Then to help bring them into our background, we're going to add that same gold ink to these clovers, and that's going to give them that fun sparkle and pot of gold at the end of the rainbow feel. So I just added a little bit of that paint to my mat. I'm going to add some water to that and just kind of thin it out and make sure that I get the nice little gold flecks all over all of these lucky clovers. And I love the mix of the 3-leaf clovers with the 4-leaf clovers. I just think that's so much fun. And look how beautiful that looks. Oh, they're so special and so pretty. I almost want to make like a little pin out of one of these to wear on St. Patrick's Day. So next up, we're going to look at our sentiment, and we're going to be using an oldie but a goodie, which is called My Lucky Charm, and it's one of my favorite sets. I think it's just so sweet, and it has this really great little sentiment in it that says, "You're my lucky charm," which makes this cute for St. Patrick's Day, but not necessarily a St. Patrick's Day card. This is a card that I could give someone any time of the year. So I'm going to stamp that in some embossing ink, and then we're going to sprinkle on some gold embossing powder, and then heat that up with the heat tool and have this beautiful shiny gold sentiment that's going to go along with the gold splatters that we added over our rainbow and over our lucky clovers. I'm going to take a sentiment banner die here and line that up with my sentiment so that there's a flag on one end, but it's nice and flat on the other end. And this is going to end up being layered over the rainbow. But before I do that, I want to see exactly where my clover placement is going to be. And as I add these clovers, I'm only adding adhesive into the center and along the stem. That way, the little leaves of the clovers are going to feel almost like three-dimensional because they're not glued down, and it's just a really pretty look. And so I'm going to layer all of these clovers, a mixture of 3-leaf and 4-leaf clovers, at the end of this rainbow, and it's really going to feel like the rainbow going into the pot of gold. So now you can see I'm just going to layer some more in there until there's just this beautiful look. And then I'm going to use my fingers to just pop up some of those leaves to give a nice dimensional feel to that little pile of clovers. We'll add some foam squares to the back of that sentiment, and we're going to layer that right above the clovers on top of the rainbow, and I think this is just so pretty. Then this is one of these things that Audrey's does a lot on her cards that I always wish I could remember to do on my designs. I think it's so cool. And she'll add a thin strip of paper. It might be a rainbow paper, it might be glitter paper on one edge of her card. And there's something about this that makes it feel so special. So this is just an 1/8-inch strip of some gold sparkle cardstock. And we're going to layer that just on one side. And you'll see now it just ties the whole thing in together. Oh, I love how it looks so much. Then here I have a standard size card base at 5.5 by 4.25. I'm going to add a bunch of foam squares to the back of the panel, and then we're going to layer that on. And I really love the look of the white background with the white card base. I just think it makes the whole thing pop. And for a little extra sparkle, I'm going to take here the Hearts and Stars skinny tag. And I love this die because it has hearts in 3 sizes and stars in 3 sizes that are the perfect little embellishments. Like how you would maybe use sequins on a card, you could add little hearts or stars. And in this case, I thought the hearts went really well with the "You're My Lucky Charm" sentiment. So we die cut that out of that same gold sparkle cardstock. And then I'm just going to add a little liquid glue behind each one of these hearts and then just kind of layer them around the sentiment. And it's just going to add some extra sparkle, and I just love those little hearts on it. I just think it feels really, really special. And I have some extra hearts I'll save for another card. Now I have some extra little embellishments to add. And this card is done. It is so shiny and so pretty, and I love that it uses that Corner Rainbow Stencil, not in the corner, and it looks absolutely incredible. And so here is a comparison between the two cards, and now you can get two totally different looks with the same stencil. So for this next card, we're going to be taking the larger rainbow and incorporating it into a scene with a cute critter. And we're going to be using some Distress Oxide inks here to create this rainbow. And we are recreating a card by Megan right now, and it is just so cute. So here we have the largest outside in stitched rectangle, and I went ahead and die cut that from some white cardstock. We're going to put this on our little stenciling station here, and now we're going to use that larger rainbow. And once again, we're going to use this rainbow outside of the corner. Now, to help me decide where my rainbow is going to go, I needed to cut my little clouds that I'm going to have at the bottom of my card. So those were cut with a puffy cloud border die. And now you'll see that I'm going to take those clouds and kind of see how it's going to look good so it really looks like that rainbow is going into the clouds. And what I did was I actually rotated the stencil just slightly to put the rainbow at a bit of a different angle so that it falls into those clouds just perfectly. So you don't even necessarily have to line up this stencil straight. You can also line it up at the edge. And here you can see I had a little helper helping me do that. This is my son Miles, and he was having so much fun. He recently discovered stencils, and he thinks they are just the best. He also loved these little brushes. They're like one of his favorite toys. He loves to stack them and play with them. So I just had to show you my fun little interlude there. And then we have a cute elephant later, and he told me he wants to make elephant rainbow cards together. So we're going to be doing that in just a little bit. But first up, I'm going to create the rainbow for this fun, rainy cloud themed card. And what I love about what Megan did is she actually combined two colors on each of these rainbow arcs. So here I've got a pink color, and now we're going to come in with more of like an orangey red with this coral color. And you can do that, especially with these little brushes, either these finger brushes or they have really small blender brushes. You're actually able to blend two inks on each arc and you don't even need to mask off or anything. So I just love using these little brushes. So there you can see I actually have a blend of ink, and then I'm just going to come in with my towel and just take off any of that extra pink. And then now we're going to work on a green for the middle arc. So we're going to add this twisted citron color. It's a really neon-y green and it's a bit too bright. So once again, we're going to bring in a different color, and this time it's going to be Mowed Lawn, which is much more of like a green green. So we're going to add that green at the bottom there, and you'll see it's going to create this nice blend. So I love that you could even blend two colors on these arcs. And then for the last arc, we're going to use some purple, and we're actually only going to use one color. So you don't necessarily have to blend on each of them, but I was able to get that perfect green by blending those two. And then now I can once again just wipe off between my arcs and then move into my purple. I have to tell you, there is just something that is so much fun about this process. I don't know what it is, but I just love filling in every arc of the rainbow. Then I can lift up my stencil and I love to bring the next one in and line it up. I don't know, there's just something about this process I just think is so much fun, and it makes me want to put a rainbow on every card. So now I was able to line up my arcs there in the center of all the previous ones, just like that, and it's at that little angle again. And now I'm going to fill in the colors in between. So we're going to add our yellow, and then we're going to bring in a little bit of orange, just like we'd been doing earlier with the two colors to kind of create this perfect blend color between each one. So now we'll have a little bit of that orange coming down from the pink. And then for this one, we're just going to have a single color. It's going to be this really pretty turquoise that's going to fill in between our green and our purple. And now, once again, my favorite part here, we're going to lift that up and you see we'll have this beautiful blended rainbow that is just stunning. Now we're going to do some more layering on this. We're going to be using one of my favorite stencils, this cloudy stencil. But what I loved about what Megan did on this card is she used the stencil upside down to create the look of rain clouds. So instead of trying to stencil upside down, I just flipped my whole card upside down and I'm going to stencil just like I normally do with the stencil, which is I start with my ink on the stencil and then I move off onto the paper and it creates this beautiful cloud look. So I started off with a lighter blue here, and now I'm going to move into a darker blue, which is this faded jeans color. And at this point, it was actually much darker than what I wanted. So what I ended up doing was just going back through and trying to lighten it up with the other color, and it ends up working out great. So that's the nice thing about the stencil is you can kind of keep lining it up and keep layering other colors. And so that's what I ended up doing. And then I'm just filling in the top of the card so that it's not too white up towards the top. And you can see how these are starting to look like some stormy clouds. So here I'm going to have my lighter color and then I'm going to come in with the darker. I just didn't put any more ink onto that darker one. And now you'll see that when we flip this whole thing around, it's actually going to look more like rain clouds because they're upside down. And I had never thought of doing that, and I think it looks so cool. So now we have our rain clouds and our rainbow, and I'm just going back over it again with the lighter color ink just to kind of lighten everything up. And then I realized I have my clouds for the bottom that we die cut earlier. I needed to make sure that that was inked up to match those clouds. So I'm adding a little bit of the light blue and the dark blue, and then just going back and forth through those colors until they blend all together. Now I'm going to spray a ton of water on this piece because I really want it to have that feel of rain. So I'm spraying water and then picking it up with my paper towel, and you can see it come to life. I love seeing this in fast motion because it just looks so pretty. And when it dries, it just softens all the colors. It makes everything blend together perfectly. It's my favorite trick for doing over stenciling because it just makes it look incredible. And now you can see already how that's starting to dry and just give this beautiful rainy sky look. Now I let everything dry off to the side, and now I'm going to use the Here For You Bear stamp set to stamp I'm Here For You on to the clouds, which is a really sweet sentiment for this rainbow rainy cloud days card. Then we're going to take this whole piece and layer it onto a standard size card. I added a ton of tape runner because I had wet it so much it was a little bit bent, and once I tape it down to the card, now it's nice and secure. And I can add some adhesive to the separate cloud piece and layer that, and now you can see that that rainbow goes into the clouds and it really just brings the whole rainbow into the scene. Now we're going to add some cute stamped images into this background that we've created. And we're going to use Elephant Parade add-on, Very Rainy Day, and Yay Kites for the clouds. And we're going to start layering all of these different things. So we're going to stamp Rain or Shine from Very Rainy Day into the cloud, and then add that cute little bear onto the rainbow so that it looks like he's sliding down the rainbow. And that helps incorporate the rainbow into this cute critter scene. We're going to add some clouds into the sky and some raindrops too, and that cute little frog that's in the Berry Rainy Day set as well. And you'll see that the die from Berry Rainy Day cuts out a ton of little raindrops. So you stamp the raindrops once, but it cuts them all out individually or in those little double groups. And so I'm just using a bunch of those raindrops and adding them into the sky and some splashes there down into the clouds. And as I started adding these, I realized that it needed a little bit of color. And in the Very Rainy Day set, there's also heart-shaped raindrops. So I went ahead and stamped and colored and die cut those, and the die cuts them out individually. And I added some red color with markers to those just to add some pops of color that are outside of the bear and the rainbow. And I think it just looks so cute and just kind of finishes up the card. And then this card needed a little bit of special sparkle. So I'm using some sparkle glaze, and I'm adding it over the hearts, but also over the little raindrops too. And then I'm going to add some over the edge of those stitched clouds, right above the stitching, but right below the edge of the die cut. And that's going to make those clouds feel really sparkly and special, maybe like they're kind of glistening with the water from the raindrops. And I think this card is just turning out so cute. I love the idea of adding a critter to the rainbow as if he's sliding down the rainbow. I bet there's a bunch of other critters in my stash that I could look for to have this kind of same look. And I think this is just so sweet and so much fun. And I had such a blast combining two different stencils to create this background. And then here are the three different cards that I created just now using the stencil in three different ways. So we've used the smaller stencil and the larger stencil, and we've incorporated it into a scene. We've used it on its own, and we've used it in the corners. And next up, Shari is going to blow you away with her Corner Rainbow Stencil card. It is stunning, and I love the colors that she used. So take it away, Shari.
So I'm starting out with a outside in stitch rectangle cut from some speckled eggshell cardstock, and I've put some removable adhesive on the back, and I'm going to stick that down to my Make Art station. I'm going to be using those Corner Rainbow Stencils. I'm using this larger rainbow down here, and I want to place it such that I get basically like a quarter of a circle. So you can see that I'm shifting it over. I'm not going to line up both flat sides with my paper. I just want it to be kind of straight up and down and left to right, if that makes sense, hopefully. And then I'm going to hold it in place with my magnets. And I'm doing two rainbows. This one's going to be all cool colors. These are the colors I'm going to use. And what I'm going to do is pull out the first, the third, and the fifth color and put the other two aside because they'll be used with the other stencil. So here are the three I'm going to use on these three rainbows that you see right here. And I'm going to start out with the green on that largest one. So I have freshly cut grass for my green color. And what I need to do is mask off some of those other bows so that I don't get my ink in there. And actually what I did was I masked off the center one, and this way I can ink up the first one and the last one without having to move my tape. So I'm using that freshly cut grass and a blending brush. I'm trying to blend up sort of from the bottom of the arch towards the top. So it's a little bit darker at the bottom and sort of fades a little bit to the top. It's very subtle, it's not super obvious, but it gives it some nice dimension. I'm going to do the same with the purple. I'm using some grape jelly, and you can kind of see it a little bit more here, how it's a little darker along that bottom edge of the arch. Now I can pull off that Post-it note tape that I use and move that to protect the ones that I already colored. I'm also going to use some Post-its because they cover a lot more real estate here, and I'm just going to move my magnets around to help hold those down. Now I can move on to that middle color, which is Peacock. And you can see I am tapping it off on that Post-it note to the side a little bit so I don't get the full intensity of the ink onto my paper. And when I pull this up, I have my first three rainbow bows to work with. And I just think that that is really cute even by itself, but I am going to fill in the other two. So I'm making sure I have the right one, and I can just line this up. There is an etching line that helps you line up that top circle. Then I can pull out those two colors that I set aside earlier. I'll be using Clover for this first one. And then once I have that inked up, I will move those pieces of tape and mask off the clover arch. And then I'm using some Forget-Me-Not ink for the last one. And then I can pull this up and you'll see I have this really fun, cool colored rainbow. Now I'm just going to flip my mat around, and here are the colors I'm going to use for my other one. And I'm going to start with the yellow as my biggest, so it kind of goes in this direction. So again, I'm going to pull out the colors that I'm going to use for the 3 bows and start by doing just like I did on the first one, by doing the largest and then the smallest. So I'm just masking off that middle one with some pieces of tape. And I'll start with Sunflower for my first color. And then moving on to the last color is going to be Bubblegum. Then I can move my masking around so my center one is open and ready to be inked. And for this, I'm using some pumpkin spice ink. And now I'm lining up the other stencils so I can finish off this rainbow with those last 2 bows. I'll mask off that bottom one. And I'm using Carrot for the one between pumpkin spice and sunflower. And then for my last color, I will be using some raspberry ink for a nice dark red. And I really like how all these colors turned out. And they look really nice and soft on that speckled eggshell cardstock, and I really love the look of this. So I'm going to turn it back right side up. I wanted my warm colors at the top and my cool colors at the bottom. And then I'm going to add some gold metallic watercolor splatters all over because I want some shimmer on this card. So I'm just getting that nice and soupy, and then I'm going to splatter some gold flecks all over this panel. And I am making sure that I have some small specks and some large splatters as well. I cut a A2 size panel 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 with a stitched rectangle from some narwhal cardstock, and then I also cut that giant thank you sentiment from the same color. And I'm just adding this panel to a card base. I could also have made the card base from the same colored cardstock, but I wanted that extra stitching detail around the outside edge. And then I'm just going to use some foam tape to mount my rainbow panel onto my card base. So this is going to be popped up from that background piece. I also wanted to create a few little images to put around my sentiment. So this little die cut sunshine is from the outside in Stitch Sun, and I just ink blended the yellow onto a piece of that eggshell cardstock so that it would match my background. And then I'm going around my die cut sun with the carrot. So I'm using the same inks that I used for my rainbows so that my little sunshine matches. I'm just going to cut a little piece of storm cloud cardstock to layer behind so that the eyes and the mouth are dark. And then this is going to go up towards the top of my card, sort of tucked behind my sentiment. And then at the bottom, I cut some little stitch clouds with the spring showers die set out of some fog cardstock. So they're kind of more of a muted white. It's not that bright, bright white. And I think that this looks really good with the colors of this card. Now, before I glue those down, I want to put my sentiment on there, and I wanted to pop it up a little bit too. So I'm using those thin foam strips and just hid them behind all the pieces of the letters, and then I pop this into the middle of the card, and I love that it is popped up off that background. It has a nice reveal. Now I can add my little images, and I'm just going to add this larger cloud directly to that rainbow panel right underneath the thank you. And I made sure that I didn't put my foam for the thank you in places where my little images were going to go. So under that bottom part of the Y, I do not have a piece of foam under it, so I could tuck my clouds up underneath. And then this one I am going to pop up with a little bit of foam. And I did actually tuck a little piece of foam under that Y once I got that cloud in there. And then I'm also going to glue the little sunshine directly to that rainbow panel and tuck it behind the top of the sentiment. And then, of course, I always want to add a little more glitter, but I tried not to go too crazy and just added some to my die cut images. So I'm adding some to the tops of the clouds and a little bit around the sun, kind of tracing those sun rays. And then here is my finished card, and I really love how it came out. Those rainbows are so pretty on that speckled eggshell cardstock and so soft, and I cannot wait to make a few more of these.
Oh my goodness, Shari, I am in love with this card. I want to stencil on speckled eggshell cardstock forever now, and I love how you have the pinks and oranges in one rainbow and then the greens and blues and purples in the other. I think it's such a fun look, and I want to try to make a card just like this too. And next up, we have some incredible cards from the design team, and I love this card by Mindy. I love how she used the Corner Rainbow Stencils and added in those hot air balloons, and she added the little stenciled sun in too. Grace stenciled a rainbow to create this beautiful magical scene with those fairies and unicorn. I love this shaker card so much. And speaking of shaker cards, this card by Callie is so sweet. I love the colors that she used on her rainbows, and that little bear is just adorable. These cards by Elise are amazing, and I love that she did both portrait and landscape, showing how cool this rainbow looks in both ways. She also added some gold paste to one of the arcs, and I think that looks absolutely beautiful. And here is her portrait version. It's just so stunning and sweet. I am so in love with the bold rainbows on Lynette's card. I love the colors that she used and how she flipped the corners to the other side of what I typically tend to do, adding a really cool sentiment and some clouds looks amazing. Kara's super clever card shows that the rainbow is a perfect match for our secret garden window, and I love the elephants in that little barrel bath. I mean, how cute is that? I love that Letitia created a landscape card and had some bold rainbows with a nice bold sentiment from offset sayings over top. I can't wait to make cards like this in all different sentiments because I would have a whole stash of cards ready to go. And this card by Megan is the one that inspired us to make ours today. It is so super cute, and I love the idea of a critter sliding down the rainbow. And then here is this beautiful St. Patrick's Day inspired card by Audrey that we recreated as well. Oh my goodness, I love it so much, and we cannot wait to see all of your rainbow cards, so make sure to share them with us. Thank you so much for watching today, and I hope you have an absolutely amazing day. Bye!